I'll ask Bo. Okay, perfect. You read my mind, Bo. Thank you very much. So welcome officially to this first day. We have with us the EADTU team, that is Bo and I. And together, two speakers from the ENCORE project, Sergio Rive and Andrea Vasquez Ingelmo. The first to start is Andrea. Both have something to say about OER, but from completely different perspective. So I give the floor to Andrea, ladies first, and then after Andrea talks, you will have the chance to make some questions. So pay attention because the questions are coming. Bye. Go, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. I'm going to share my screen and tell me if you can see everything. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes. Yes, it's visible. It is a bit
yeah, right.
Vertical. Yeah, like it's a mobile kind of.
Okay. Yeah. Let me check it.
But it's visible, Andrea.
Okay, but maybe for the. Okay, let me here. I will share my. I think it's a problem of the screens. Okay.
Yeah, it was better the other one because
the other way, right?
Yeah. See.
Okay, no problem. I will share
visible, so go with that. It's fine.
Thank you very much. So, welcome everybody to this webinar related. In this part, I will talk a little bit about the challenge we face when collecting OERs for the ENCORE platform. Okay, just to put in context, I'm Andrea Vázquez Ingelmo. I am a researcher at the University of Salamanca in Spain, and I have a PhD in computer science, in which I focus on data visualization, data science, and also on machine learning applications. So what I'm going to talk a little bit during this talk is about the different parts of collecting OERs and the challenge we face when collecting them. I'm going to talk a little bit about what is an OER, then the challenges related to the existing solutions in OERs, and then how we use the ENCORE platform to centralize these OERs and new challenge we faced during the development of the ENCORE platform. So first things first, what are OERs? Open educational resources are any kind of teaching, learning, or research materials that are either in the public domain or available under open license. The key point here is that OERs are designed specifically for educational purposes, unlike other resources. So they have an intrinsic educational value and can be used in various learning contexts without barriers in general. So according to UNESCO, open educational resources are this kind of research materials, as I said, and here they have this kind of relevance in the no-cost access, reuse, repurpose, and adaptation and redistribution by others. But what are exactly these OERs? Now that we know that OERs are free and accessible, let's dive deeper into what makes them unique educational resources. So at their core, OERs have several defining features that distinguish them from other types of content. This distinguished feature is that they have this intrinsic educational value and that they are specifically designed for learning purposes. So this means that OERs are developed with a clear educational objective in mind, making them highly effective. They are also independent, shareable, interoperable, and context independent. And this is one of the key features of OER is that they are discoverable. But we will see during this webinar that this is also a challenge in current repositories of open educational courses. So also, in addition to all this, we want to have these kind of characteristics that are free, adaptable, and shareable. These are also key characteristics that make these educational resources open, right? So connecting these two dimensions of open educational resources, we have this complete definition, which is free, adaptable, shareable, with intrinsic educational value, independence, shareable, interoperable. Okay, so this is what makes an educational resource open. Let's explore different types of OERs. The beauty of OERs is that they come in a wide range of formats, catering to different learning styles and preferences. For example, you have traditional resources like books that combine text and images, and documentaries that use both audio and video to engage learners, for example. And these are all open educational resources. We can also have podcasts, diagrams, even songs, infographics, datasets, or even serious games. Okay, so now that we know what are open educational resources, where do we search for this kind of OERs? For example, if you need to learn a new programming language or teach some new methodology, where will we search for this kind of resources? So in this sense, we have repositories of open educational resources, which are free access digital repositories where this kind of training contents can be efficiently searched and downloaded by users. We have different popular open educational resources. These are platforms that have built large collections of educational resources and that are free available to educators and students alike. So as we continue, let's talk about the importance of discoverability in this kind of repositories. While having access to a vast number of hours, it's equally important that these resources are as easily searchable. The best repositories are the ones that not only provide a large number of resources, that of course this is an important characteristic of repositories, but also offer powerful search filters to help you find exactly what you need. This is especially useful for educators who might not have time to sift through hundreds of resources to find the perfect match for their educational objectives. So these popular open educational repositories have this kind of filters, and well, they also have meaningful OER data. What do we mean by meaningful data? No, in this sense, we talk about how each OER is characterized, because this characterization, these attributes, is that what makes OERs discoverable and usable. No? Because if we have a great description or a meaningful title of a OER, it is easier to search for them and to find this kind of OERs that can match our educational objective, right? So what can we say that is meaningful data? So we can have a title, a description, the subject that the OER addresses, the creators, the contributors, even the publication date, because maybe sometimes we want to access, OERs that are newer. Also the type, the category of the resource, if it's an images, if it's text, if it's a PDF. Now, this is important data that we have to bear in mind in order to search for OERs. Also the language, these repositories have mainly OERs in English, but maybe, for example, myself, for some classes, I want to search for OERs in Spanish. So in this sense, we need all this data in order to obtain and to search meaningful OERs. But this comes with different challenges, right? Let's move on to the challenge involved in collecting OERs, because despite the many advantages of OERs, there are several hurdles that still need to be addressed particularly in terms of this accessibility and, of course, usability. So coming back to this initial question about how do we search for OERs? Okay, so first, one of the biggest challenges is the heterogeneity of sources, because we have, as we saw, we have different repositories, but we also have other several sources that lets you search for OERs. Maybe universities, maybe independent educators that also have these educational resources in an open license, right? And they are available in these many different formats, from text to videos to games to data. This diversity is great in terms of content, but it makes standardization very difficult. And another challenge is this searching for OERs. With so many resources and repositories available, how do we find the right ones for our specific educational needs? The process typically starts with defining our educational goal. And before you start searching, you need to have clear understanding of what you want for the OER to accomplish. Are you looking to teach a specific skill, reinforcing knowledge, introduce a new content? Well, this is key questions that we need to have in mind before starting the process of searching for OERs, right? So in this sense, we analyze our goal, think about the query, and perform in this query in different repositories, and then retrieve and analyze the OERs. And we need to repeat this in different repositories until our goal is already achieved, right? So it is repetitive. It's often necessary to repeat this process several times. And this also is a challenge because educators need to spend so many time in searching for these OERs that we want to streamline this process. So this is right now the process. We need to perform several queries in different repositories of open educational resources, and finding the right OER often involves this iterative process, right? And we also need to evaluate that the OERs comply with our quality of methodology, right? So as you go through these steps, formulating the query, performing the search, retrieving and analyzing the OERs, it's normal to go back and tweak our query or rethink the resources you found. This can sometimes feel like a time-consuming process, but refining the approach leads to much better results. So with the ENCORE project, what we want to do is to centralize the OER and enrich the platform with additional information related to each of these open educational resources in order to make educators make the process of searching the different open educational resources easier for educators in this case, but also to students. So we want to shift from searching from different repositories of open educational resources to only one centralized, unified repository of open educational resources. And also, as I said before, by characterizing also the OERs with enriched information, we also make easier the discoverability of this open educational resource, right? But how did we make this? How do we centralize different OERs that come from different sources, right? We use a domain engineering approach and a web scraping approach to obtain from different online repositories these OERs, but also the domain engineering approach to obtain abstract characteristics of OERs in order to put them together and to allow a better characterization of these resources, right? So putting it all together for OER centralization, we will have different OERs that is different repositories that we scrap from using this web scrapping approach, and we then structure them using a domain engineering approach, right? So for this, we first define a schema, right, with these different attributes that we consider relevant for the educator and for the students, and we arrange them into a meta model. In this sense, the meta model is a diagram in which we identify key attributes, key entities in the process of searching for open educational resources. So in this sense, we use this meta model to characterize better the open educational resources and to make easier the life of educators when it comes to both discover open educational resources and also use them. Because right now in the raw ERs that we showed before, these open educational resources are mostly links or URLs that point to external websites. So it is very difficult for educator to use the content of these open educational resources because they need to access external websites. So by using this meta model, this model of open educational resources, by extracting the data, the relevant data from the raw ERs and also from the content of the OERs, we can we can develop a centralized database with a lot of more information that can make this discoverability easier. This challenge we also face in other platforms. For example, this platform is also a repository of open educational resources, but in this sense is a platform with text that make text that allows German teachers to use different texts for their classes and for developing reading skills. These open educational resources, these open texts are available, but they have different problems, mostly related to the usability of them because they are bad formatted and other kind of issues. So these challenges are not only intrinsic to open educational resources, but also to other open text in this, right? So for example, this illustrates the challenge that I was talking about. If you access one raw ER, one repository, the repository doesn't have the content of the OER itself. It has a URL that leads you to another website. So the teacher or the educator needs to access this external website in order to get the content, the educative content. So in this sense, the ENCORE database aims to tackle these challenges by centralizing the OERs, by enriching them with additional information, that is the skills that are tackling or that the OER is addressing, and well, in a more standardized way with the meta model. Also, with this database, we are working together with other partners in order to create better interfaces that make these open educational resources usable. So teachers and educators can use the content of these resources, right? Right now we have plenty of OERs and plenty of creators included in the ENCORE database, but we are facing new challenge, okay, that I already talked about a little bit, but we are facing new challenge because during the generation of this database, we identified some additional problems more related to the usability. So what are the key challenges in the usability and the integration of OER? Okay, so we have the heterogeneity of sources and formats, as I talked before, right? In this sense, OER come from different sources and are available in various formats, and this make it difficult to directly integrate them into educational platforms like Moodle, because as I told you before, they are mostly URLs to other web pages. So in this sense, by facing this heterogeneity, we can integrate the OERs into the daily life of educators. Also, the limited direct usability, because existing educational tools struggle to utilize or to use these open educational resources effectively due to the lack of a comprehensive framework. In this sense, we propose this meta model in order to adhere the methodologies of generating new open resources into a standard, right? Of course, this challenge arises in aligning the open educational resources with specific educational objectives and frameworks. So this is why I talk about characterizing better the data that we have of open educational resources. Also, we need to enhance the usability of these OERs, and we do this by this meta model that we propose in the context of the ENCORE project, right? So by characterizing this OER, the extension of the meta model aims to create a framework that uniformly represents OERs. So this way we can enable the direct use in educational tools and educational settings. So this way educators can search for OERs that align with learning objectives, integrate them into personalized learning paths, and use them in other assessments. And last but not least, we also aim with this identification of challenge is a call to action to create a collaborative and accessible learning environment. So by fostering a collaborative educational community, we can encourage the sharing and collaboration of OERs, contributing to a knowledge sharing environment that is also standardized by using this framework that we propose. This calls for a collaborative effort among educators, technologists, also not only educators, and policymakers to rethink and use the OERs in modern pedagogy. So thank you very much. Now I will be pleased to answer any question that can arise from this talk.
Thank you, Andrea. Maybe put the slide, your email address in the chat if somebody want to copy,
Okay.
maybe not if possible,
Sure.
probably like this. So any question for Andrea? You can decide to turn on the microphone and talk, or just type in the chat. We will appreciate if you talk, will be more fast and more interactive. But Antonio is congratulate you. And I congratulate you as well. The idea of having a repository all in one is fantastic, because then you don't have to worry about language, you don't have to worry about what type of file you're looking for. It's just everything there. It's like, sorry to say, Google, right? You just put
like that.
Somebody is asking for the presentation. Don't worry about this thing. You will find everything on the SlideShare later on. Question, not. I know Andrea has been fantastic, so it all was clear. But if you want to trigger and do also something technical, I mean, she's a techie, so she can take it.
Yeah.
I love the color you use in the presentation as well. So
thank you.
I give you 30 seconds more, otherwise I pass.
So
to
I have one provocative comment
like
question.
It. She can take it. Go.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, because Andrea mentioned very nicely the limits of OERs, in the sense that we discovered in ENCORE that you can build a very complex database with a very complex query system and so on. But at the end, the quality of OERs depends on the producer of the OERs. So how we can educate teachers and then trainers in creating OERs in a good way. So if you have some suggestion or hints on this topic, because so in my opinion, we did a great job for the community, but now how we can try to push more, no, in this direction.
Yeah, for me, I think that during this project, and of course, during the identification of the challenge that and the limited the limits that OERs have nowadays, I think that we can share like good practices in creating OERs, like from the challenge that we identified, we can also identify the good practices in generating OERs. For example, having a meaningful title for the OER, having a meaningful description, maybe make the OER, if the OER is a video, make the transcription also available. Something that boosts the accessibility, but also the usability. And this, I think these good practices that I am talking right now, because these good practices, I identify them by identifying the challenges that the OERs have right now, right? I think we can generate like a framework or a methodology, not only for using OERs, but also for producing them, as you greatly say, Antonio.
Serge, I see you. Andrea, I love your answer, but let me just say something. Then I introduce you, Serge, and then you answer to Andrea and everything. Give me just one comment. In principle, I agree with you, Andrea, because of calling a file or OER file one will not allow you to identify what it is. And this is connected with what I want to say. That is, we need to educate teachers to understand, first of all, what OER are, and that nobody is taking your stuff. Because I used to work with OER already for many years, and the fear that many people got, at least with the national international project I work with, was really like, is then remain my copyright, remain? So there is still a bit of fear of sharing, then I lose it. No, sharing is caring. People have said multiple times, and there has been an enormous work in relation to the Creative Commons licensing. Also, the European Commission have done a lot to making understand people that if you are producing something independently what it is, a text or anything, and you put it there out in the community, then it's only an added value to have comment and reach it. That is very much understood in the technical world. GitHub works fantastically, but you know, the code are shared and everything. In our environment is still hard, and there are some people are really stick with this is mine and that's mine only. I don't know what Serge thinks, but I'm curious to know what you want to comment and also to hear about your presentation. So let's hear you first, and then if there is some follow-up, we follow that.
Yes, I think one criterion which is missing is what is the educational model values behind the OER? Because OER tend to be about a license, but what about the values? Is it about, for example, does the learning experience lead to authentic assessment? There are many OER that provide artificial assessment, like multiple choice questions and things like that, that are not really related to an actual practice. So I think we need to have a better understanding of what are the values and the learning models that are behind the resources that are being used. This is something you have to consider taking into account.
We need to consider that because with the meta model, and I totally agree with Alessandra for sure, because I think we don't not only want to standardize the OERs or the structure, we also want to foster this open community, which I think is something that educators need to engage more with, as Alessandra pointed out. And they also need to understand that this is good, not only for the rest of educators, but also for them. And in this sense, having these kind of models can also include these values that Serge pointed out. And from there, I don't know how to say it, but evolving from there to more complex models and more open educational resources better characterized that can be more usable both for educators but also for students. So in this sense, we already didn't account for that, but in the future we can account for that.
Thank you. So
thank you very much, Andrea. And Serge, if you are ready with your slide talk, please go ahead. The floor is yours, because we are running a bit out of time. I mean, it's not completely true because we started at 06, so we are actually on time, but maybe people need to do something else. So the floor is yours. The slides are visible. Go ahead.
okay, so welcome to this presentation where I explain how, starting from open educational resources, we address the issue of open recognition in education. So basically, it is the ENCORE exploration of open badges. We use open badges as a support tool for this journey. So just a quick presentation of ENCORE. ENCORE stands for Enriching Circular Use of OER for Education. So the idea is how can we use and multiply OERs from existing ones. And so the conversation will be about open education, open educational resources, also about open badges and open recognition in education. So this is a basic schema for what ENCORE is about. We started with skills definitions and OERs, and then we created indexed OER as it has been presented by Alexandra. And so the ecosystem is based on educators. Educators will produce OERs who are using OERs, but also learners. And the focus of the conversation will be about how do we make visible the practices, what people learn. And so our focus has been on open badges, and you will see here a collection of the badges that we are starting to develop in the course of the project. So the meaning of open, I put a S because there are multiple meanings of open, and to understand the conversation, we need to start with a few definitions. So as I mentioned, we speak about open education, resources, badges, and recognition. And if you look at these four open things, open education is related to a practice. Open resources is mainly related to a license because the idea is to be free to access. Open badges are also about a license. It's an open license, but it doesn't say anything about the way it is being used. It's the same for open educational resources. It doesn't say how it can be used. It can be used, I don't know, for something which is very open, or something which will be also how to restrict women's right to abortion, for example. You can have an OER on that. So we have to be very careful to understand that if we want to be open, it's not just about the license of things, but it's also about how they are being used. And recognition is also about a practice. And so there was a framework developed by the Joint Research Committee in Sevilla, we defined the 10th dimension, the 10th dimension of open education. And the focus of our conversation today is about OER, so resources and recognition. So if you take the definitions, the two definitions provided in this framework, when we speak about OER, it's really about free access, okay? That's all we have to remember. If we look at the definition they provide about recognition, it says recognition in open education has two meanings. It is a process usually carried out by an accredited institution of issuing a certificate, diploma, or title which has formal value. B, it is also the process of formally acknowledging and accepting credentials, such as a badge, a certificate, a diploma, or a title issued by a third-party institution. So this is a definition given in this framework of recognition. And I want to elicit here is there is a difference between recognition in open education and open recognition in education. No, just moving education and recognition around totally change the meaning of things. Because the definition that was provided just before is recognition in open education. But what is open recognition in education? What is open recognition? Which is slightly different from recognition in open education. And so I provide again the definition about recognition in open education, which is really about the process of issuing certificates or acknowledging outside certificates delivered outside of the institution. Open recognition, on the other hand, is a framework that acknowledges the equality of all forms of recognition, whether informal, non-formal, or formal. An open recognition ecosystem is an environment where every entity, people, organizations, can contribute and benefit. It is in an open recognition ecosystem, people recognize and being recognized. And in fact, we have a conference in Paris in November, where we'll have the Paris Declaration on the equality of recognition. We can discuss that later. So understand that just changing the place of recognition changes the meaning of the aggregation of words. So really, it is open recognition in education versus recognition in open education. You can say, the famous trial in the US of Roe versus Wade about the right of abortion. Here it could be Roe versus or in education. So, and all that we've been able to formulate that this way thanks to the ENCORE experience. And the experience is about open educational resources, but with a specific focus on green, digital, and entrepreneurial skills. That was the brief. That is a brief for the project. And in Europe, we have three frameworks. We have DICCOMP, which is about digital competencies. We have ENTRECOMP, which is about entrepreneurial competencies. And we have GreenComp, which is about green competencies. And the question is how you have three frameworks, but you want to develop something which is a bit more integrated. And how can we articulate these frameworks? There are multiple solutions, but one we have selected at this point. I don't know if you know the ENTRECOMP framework, but the ENTRECOMP framework is about resources, about ideas and opportunities, using resources in order to do interaction. And so basically what we try to do is to articulate these three frameworks, to put ENTRECOMP framework at the center, being entrepreneurial, looking at DICCOMP as being related to resources, because we use digital technology in order to support our entrepreneurial practices, and GreenComp as an opportunity, as an idea, okay, is how can we be entrepreneurial in order to develop a green economy using digital competencies? So it's a kind of, how can we articulate these things? And That we call the Go Green framework. It is a fabrication, but it's a way to articulate these three framework into a meaningful one. And so from that framework, we defined the practice within this community of practice, within the Go Green community of practice, as an entrepreneurial practice aiming at creating a green society with the support of digital technology. This is the articulation, the formulation of this articulation. So we define a new practice, which is a green practice using digital technology and by being entrepreneurial. And from that, in this community of practice, we could define 4 different postures. Basically, I think it's a great idea. The other one, I'm exploring this practice, or I'm a practitioner. That means I'm a real practitioner about green practices using digital technology and being entrepreneurial about that, or I can be an expert. And we define 2 roles, but we can define more, which is you can be an ambassador for the Go Green community, or you could be also a curator. This is looking for resources, example of practices related to going green. And so basically, you can imagine that the development of a person could go within a kind of a space defined by 3 dimensions, green, entrepreneurial, and digital. And you could develop more into the digital side, more into the green side, more on the entrepreneurial side. But basically, you have these 3 components, this space of development for becoming a practitioner within this community. But in fact, in the ENCORE project, we developed more than 1 community of practice. In fact, we have 3 communities of practice. We have the ENCORE partnership and the users of the ENCORE tools and methodologies. We have the open education practitioners who are producing, repurposing, and using OERs. And we have the Go Green practitioners who are integrating green, digital, and entrepreneurial competencies into their practices. So we have, in fact, 3 communities of practice. And so in each community, by default, we can define 4 postures: supporter, explorer, practitioner, or expert. But we could define more. We could define 6 or 8, but it is just a default value, which is very practical to use. And then you can define roles like ambassador, curator, partner in each of these communities. But there is no limit to this role, of course. And so, for example, a teacher can be a member of the ENCORE community as a project partner, can be part also of the open educator community of practice as an open educational practitioner, also part of the Go Green community. A student can be a member of Go Green also. So basically, it's a community where you have teachers, practitioners, people who are engineers in the field. So you don't think about these communities as something only linked to education and the fact that you have a certificate at the end of a learning experience, but the center is very different. And so by joining ENCORE community of practice, you can show your commitment to educational practices, find like-minded people, improve your practice by using ENCORE tools. So going back to this trial, raw versus OR, with OER being the kind of instrument that has helped us to formulate these ideas. This is my last slide, almost. But basically to compare the difference between open recognition education versus recognition in open education. In the first one, the focus is on students, teachers, technicians as members of communities of practice. When you look at the definition of recognition in open education, it's really looking at students as individuals. But there is not at all the notion of a community of practice there. And the recognition can be informal, micro at the individual level, non-formal, meso at the community level, or macro at the society level. In open education, it is just at the formal level. How? Well, it can be through expert endorsement, teachers, peer endorsement, client endorsement. Well, in open education, it is about tests and exams. And what is recognized can be practices, commitments, achievements, roles, responsibilities. Well, what is recognized in open education is learning, full stop. We can recognize everyone, absolutely everyone. Your peer students can be a client, can be where you organize a work practice. Well, the only body we can recognize in open education in the current definition is the institution. In terms of recognition flow, it is socially constructed, it is bottom-up, horizontal, or top-down. Everything is possible, but as it is socially constructed, well, in open education, it is solely top-down because it is the institution that recognizes. And in terms of artifact, in open recognition, they are dynamic. They can be updated with new data, like a portfolio if you want. They are networked. That means that your credentials is connected to the other credentials you have, but also to the other credentials, same credentials that other people have. Well, in open education, they tend to be static and disconnected from each other. And so if you think about the difference between open recognition in education and recognition in open education, one is tendentially transformative while the other is tendentially conservative. So the journey we had in this project from open educational resources to open recognition education through open badges is really moving from the idea of recognition in open education, which was original idea most of the project had, to really the idea of open recognition in education. So changes the focus and the balance between recognition and education. So thank you for listening. And if you want to join the communities, you have the QR codes in order to get the badges from the different communities. And happy to hear your comments and reactions to these ideas.
Thank you very much, Serge. Are there any questions for him after this wonderful presentation? Please feel free to ask the questions in the chat or by opening your microphone. I see some people coming back, turning on their cameras.
For par condicio, I have a question for Serge.
Bravo.
So thanks a lot, Serge, for this nice presentation. So to engage the community is not easy at all, in my opinion, in the sense that you need to investigate, introduce very sophisticated methods. But I'm wondering how this approach could be in some way generalized for any type of skills that could be also traversal skills or future skills that we have not taken into account in the ENCORE project. So how you see the evolution of this framework for the new skills that will emerge in the near future?
But the thing is, skills don't exist independently from each other. And so they are unified through a practice. It's through the practice that you develop skills. So hence the idea of communities of practice. So I think for example, if you take artificial intelligence, you have it's a practice. But you have multiple practices around artificial intelligence. You have people writing prompts, you have people developing large language models. So, but it's always related to a practice. I think the mistake we tend to make in education, we think in terms of knowledge, less than practice. As for example, I mentioned authentic assessment earlier. If you want to have authentic assessment, it must be related to some kind of a practice. Well, even theoretical practice. we're always involved in a practice, even if it is a very abstract one. So the question is, if we think in terms of skills, we tend to disaggregate things and not look at the unity. I think practice is what unites skills, and the same skills, the same skill, the same title can be very different in one practice or another. It's not the same to be a team player in a football team or in a rugby team. It's not the same thing. You can say, okay, you're a good team player in that game, but not a good team player in another one. So at the end, what is important is a practice. And so that's why communities of practice is a way to sublate the question, to go beyond the question of about skills. New practices emerge. When you say there are new skills emerging, no, skills don't emerge just like that. Skills emerge as an element of practice. But there is not a skill that emerges by itself. No, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Thanks a lot, Serge.
Sergio, thank you very much, and I like that you really like to play. There is somebody, Canan, I think, that wants to make a question. Please go ahead. Turn on the, please.
Hello, Sergey. Thanks so much for this wonderful presentation, and Andrea too. I don't know if Andrea will remember me from another project we worked together on on game migration. And actually half of that project was focused on OER collection. So now that I, watch your presentation and what you have in store, it's like, oh my God, I should have had this at the time because our project was like a couple of years ago. So it wrapped up. But this sounds amazing. And I was wondering, because there's this like tens of thousands of people who contribute, and then you have like hundreds of thousands of resources, different, a big range of resources. So how did this come to as the platform? Was it like another research of OERs that were sort of curated on this platform, or you actually got real people, teachers, or content creators submit or sort of forward their own content and make it available on ENCORE? Is it like a result of a collaboration or research? That's what I was really curious about. And maybe another follow-up question to this, the contributors, what is their motivation? Why do they want to contribute and turn their resources into OERs? So
I think it's more a question for Andrea, but Antonio.
Yeah, probably. Sorry if it is the wrong direction.
Serge, this was not for you, but was interesting also. If I
kind of like needed to see the big picture because I'm not as familiar as many of you with ENCORE. So this is basically the first time that
we are part of the team as well. The answer that come very summary answer is algorithm. No really contribution from teachers, but I leave Andrea and maybe Antonio can jump in to say more and introduce your talk tomorrow. If you see the connection as I see it. But the floor to Andrea. Serge, of course, you can also, everybody is free to talk.
I'd appreciate any answer.
Yeah, so this collection that we centralize into the ENCORE database is right now other OERs that were in other repositories. Okay, so right now there hasn't been like a specific content generation from educators for this specific database. But what we are working on with Antonio in this collaboration also is that generating new content from existing one using these new generative AIs. That Antonio will talk more about this tomorrow. I don't want to make you any spoiler, but yeah, this is one of the main directions right now. And why educators should engage in this open education philosophy, for to say in this way. Well, this is like me, I'm a developer, I'm a software developer, and it's the same as open code. It's more from conviction, and also because you want to make your own resources available, and this will generate a community that in some way will retribute you back with new content also. No? So right now it's more of a kind of philosophy, but if search also can add more to my response.
No, I think it was a very
Thank you.
clear response.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? In the chat. I see Alessandra already sent a link to the ENCORE website as well, and the hashtag to be looking us on social media. I see it's already 2 o'clock, so I would like to thank our webinar speakers for this meeting. Alessandra, I see you are all there as well, unmuting yourself. I want to say for tomorrow's webinar, the second day of this webinar week, we will start 1.5 hour later than today. We will start at 1:30 Central European Summertime. I'll put this in this chat as well, with a link to the Eventbrite page where you can find more information. So we would like to see all of you again tomorrow for a new round of presentations. And thank you for being here, and thank you for presenting to our presenters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.